All right, Beyonders, welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. We have a great show for you today. I am your host, Justin. We are joined by Dan and Jason, co-hosts of this podcast. Welcome to the show, guys. We're happy to have you here.
Yep.
Greetings,
I was just thinking we should add some new games into the montage there at the beginning.
Dude, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we did that.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe
that's awkward.
Maybe it's time for opening credit refresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be kind of weird not to have one of those games be Warcry, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we need a new Warcry intro, right?
There you
I don't know. So, all right, things to work. Okay, I'll add that to the list. Things to work on.
Yeah.
But we got a good show today. We are going to talk about a little-known game. At least I assume it's little-known because I hadn't heard about it very much before. And since I am clearly the barometer of well and little-known games, this is a little-known game called ISS Vanguard. Jason received this game for Christmas, and we had a chance to play it over the weekend, and we're coming at you with our report. Thumbs up, thumbs down, Gladiator Roman Empire style. What are we coming at it with?
Yeah.
So it's going to be excellent, and let's get into it. But first, of course, we must start with our Geek Week. Dan, kick us off with the Geek Week, sir.
All right. I want everyone to go back at the episode where we talked about New Year's resolutions.
Which was only like one episode ago, if we are not counting
episodes.
the Winning Warcry.
Yeah, exactly.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks
ago. I already failed. Hard fail on the not buying stuff thing. Now, look, I've got a rationalization for this. First of all, how many of us have had a New Year's resolution and have tripped the first couple weeks and then got right back on the horse? So I'm trying not to spend money on games. However, my son and I love Super Fantasy Brawl, and one of our favorite online retailer had the statues that go on the board. You can't really see them because my light's really bright. There you go. And they're MSRP for $25, and I got it for $5. So
$5?
Yeah, for $5. A really good deal. These are going to be a lot of fun to paint. They're large. They're not minis.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
And the sculpts, I love the sculpts for this game. They have so much. I just love everything about it. So I got that. And, with our favorite online retailer, if you spend $100, you get free shipping. So since I spent $5 to get free shipping, I had to spend another $95. So I had another good reason to do that. Okay. I'm not on the Winning Warcry sessions because I'm such a noob and I don't have anything to contribute. I really don't. But I listened to them. And you were talking to the other Dan, the other Dan who swaps in for me in the alternate universe of Winning Warcry. Bizarro Dan. And you guys had talked about it came up, Bloodrack Medusas came up in the conversation. And that was like a trigger word for my spending freakishness because I have I have a big percentage of the minis for that for the Daughters of Cain, but I don't have like the lead best figure in the warband. And I know that when they look at the warbands, they don't care whether or not you have all the models. The warband points are based off of each other a little bit. So I figured, you know what? I went and found one on eBay. I need to glue it up and paint it. It should be great. And then because I was on a kick, I ended up getting Vanguard. These mounted guys. I got these Vanguard guys. This was my other online retailer purchase to get to $100. Because the other thing is I've been haphazardly buying warbands that are all these bespoke warbands that are just really slow and tanky guys. And they just chug along, and they're almost all in chaos. So Dark Oath Savagers, Iron Golems, Untamed Beasts, and they all need cavalry. They all need a riding cavalry piece that can get around the board to swap in. So now I have Slaves to Darkness. I've got these guys. And then I realized I should probably get some more minis to go with these minis in their warband. I haven't done that. I've thought about it, but I haven't.
Hey, that's their gateway drug into the darkness, right? Like faction.
So I was like,
Yeah.
these guys are awesome. Who are the guys who are supposed to help these
Their
guys?
models are so cool. I love the Vanguard models.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I've not glued these up or painted them. I already know worth every penny. I just know.
You're going
Because
to
I
have
know
some
how much fun-
choices when you open that box on how you configure them.
Well, there's 3 weapons, and if I was playing Age of Sigmar, I'd have to give them all the same weapon for them to operate together as a unit, right? But for Warcry, you could give one the axe and one the spear and one the sword, right?
Yeah. There's also the I don't remember the names off my head, but there's like the Doom Knight. There's like the hero configuration, which is what you're probably going to want because then you can ally them in.
That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Yep.
I'm going to do ally configuration.
And
that's
worst comes to worst, even if he has the Doom Knight helmet or whatever, you can still count him as a regular one if you're building your list.
And I don't know anyone that would say that's not a Doom Knight. Or, you
Right,
know.
exactly. Yeah, totally.
well, I'm pretty good about gluing these things up.
So I just want to share some stats here. 38.5% of U.S. adults set New Year's resolutions every year. 23% quit within the first week, and only 36% make it past the first month. 9% successfully keep their New Year's resolution. So I just thought I'd throw those stats out, you know. So
you just want to take salt and rub it in my wounds, huh? You're trying to demoralize me. You don't want me to get on my Vanguard horse, to get back on the Vanguard horse.
You know,
They're like lizard dragon horses too. They're weird looking.
I am a little worried about facing off against some Vanguard because they are pretty beefy. So, you know.
Well, we'll have to play, Justin.
Yes, we will.
We'll have to play. All right, the other geek thing we did a couple weeks ago was we've talked about Outer Rim a lot. Outer Rim is when you're either a bounty hunter or smuggler or like a jack of all trades kind of character in Star Wars, and you mess around the Outer Rim and you travel around and go on adventures and find people and take in bounties and move cargo around. It's a great gateway game for people who are maybe not very gamery. You know, we had a new guy come to our congregation, and Sean and I had decided that we were going to play that night. We randomly invited him, and we also invited our buddy John. And we just had a really nice time. You don't have to be that big of a gamery gamer guy it's a pretty good gateway game. Realized he's in the Secret Service. So we were playing Star Wars with the Secret Service guy. One of the reasons I bring this up is because I've been playing this game a lot, and I got a couple of the rules wrong. And the beauty of playing a game with John is he'll point that out to you. And he'll say, Dan, I think you're playing that rule wrong. I think you're doing that absolutely wrong. And you have to have the humility when you play with people to go, oh, maybe I'm doing that wrong. Let me go check the rule book. Oh my gosh. So I'm a big fan of pressing pause mentally, going and checking the rule book and saying, oh, okay. Now I will do it right from now on. Or for this game, we're going to do it this way, you know, or we're definitely just going to do a house rule contained to this game, but make it be a clear house rule, not like this is what we thought the book said. So a lot of times we learn how to play games from other people, and we can absorb their misreading of the rules. And I had realized that I had misread the reading of a couple of rules from the first guy that I played that game with. So anyway, rules matter, and it makes the game more balanced and fun and interesting, by the way. So, and then some of your house rules that you thought wouldn't make things worse in certain ways just suddenly do. And you're like, oh, I messed up the game balance with my house rule because I was reading the original rules wrong. So it's fun. Anyway, play your games with different people so you can compare and contrast your interpretation of the rules is my takeaway there. That was Geek Week. That was a couple of Geek Weeks. Most of that stuff happened over the last couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Jason, how was your Geek Week?
I had a good one. My for Christmas, my kids got me this little knockoff Game Boy, which is really an SNES Atari emulator.
Oh wow!
So they legitimately bought me an illegitimate device.
Uh-oh.
There are like 168 little like Atari and NES games in here, and there are like tons of them are like clone, like Chinese knockoffs, right? Like, you know, I'm like, I remember this game, and then after a few minutes, I'm like, this is River City Ransom. I mean, like, but it's like totally like not River City Ransom. Like, this is
Like-
River City Ransom, you know. Or,
It's like Oceanville,
Yeah,
buyback.
yeah, it's something crazy. Like, what do they call it? They call it hold on. What are they? Yeah. I don't know. It's dumb, but there's like 168 games on this. I'm just browsing through this little thing. 168 games. Hot Blood Story. It's called Hot Blood Story.
That doesn't sound like a Chinese knockoff title at all.
No. But it's, I put it next to my bed, which was a bad idea because at night I'll grab it and turn it on, and next thing I know, I've got like an hour has gone by, and I'm playing all these little games like Double Dragon and Ninja Turtles 2 and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, all those SNES, and then they've even got like Dig Dug, those old Atari games are on there. So that's been consuming a little bit of my time there. I remember I opened it. My son was like, we legitimately bought this off Amazon. I'm like, I don't think that matters. But thank you. It's the thought that counts.
Yeah.
If you feel like you have to say that, you may be suspicious of its acquisition.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put a link in the show notes for other people to also get one of those.
Yeah. No, they can find their own. But
how many games was it? Did you say
168?
168.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. 168. 68. And you know what's crazy is I'm finding that I know all of these games.
Wow.
Like I'm like every day I'm going to a different one, and I'm like, no, I've played this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Some of these games, like, it's got some really old classics like Puyon, which is like one I played on the Commodore 128 back in the day.
Oh wow.
Which I think had an Atari release, which is why. But anyways, yeah. So that's been fun, pretty fun there. So that's probably been the biggest thing. My brother had a birthday party last week. Let's see, what day is it? Yeah, last week. And so we came over and played some games at his house. And speaking of house rules, Dan, him and his daughters, they wanted to play Secret Hitler. So his brothers are over there, and his brothers host a game night, just kind of like our group does. Like John Tross's group hosts a guy down here hosts a big game night once a month, where like probably 20-ish to 30 people show up on a Friday night or something. Well, they do the same thing kind of up in another part of Virginia, but they are like super house ruly people. Yeah. Like every time I play a game with them, like, okay, this is a really cool game. It's like, now we have a couple house rules, and I'm like, okay. And so we're getting ready to play Secret Hitler, and I just stopped and was like, first of all, do you guys have any house rules for Secret Hitler? And they were like, no. Well, except for this one house rule. And I was like, you can't apply a house rule to Secret. Like, the game is proven. It's good. Yeah. Leave it alone. Yeah, totally. Leave it alone. And sure enough, the house rule came up, and I stopped and I was like, I think it might be better not to play the house rule. And they were like, yeah, I think you're right in this situation.
What was the house rule?
It was okay. So if you're familiar with Secret Hitler, if presidential what do you call them? Like campaigns or just elections if they fail, if they continue to fail, you move this little marker. Yeah. And once that marker gets to a certain point, you just pass the top
over
policy.
The next bill. Yep.
And then you reset it.
Yeah.
Right. So their house rule was, once it fails and you immediately pass one, you don't reset it. Every time it fails from that point, you keep passing. Yeah. No, I was like, no.
And that barrels you towards the bad guys winning.
Yeah. Well, it ends the game super fast. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It biases it towards
because there's like two-thirds of the resolutions are fascist resolutions, right? Yeah.
So what we were at a point in the game where it was a neck to neck. It was like we were at 4 fascists and 4 what's the other one?
Liberals.
Liberal, yeah. 4 fascists and 4 liberals. So it was like whatever one popped next was gonna do it. right?
Yeah.
And this was after one had failed. So one came down, that equaled it out. So we're like, no, we have to
Yeah.
reset the track because this game is too like, the social dynamic is super strong in this game. We need the extra time to continue to, fight off that cathartic release of the social context there.
It's really funny that they felt like they needed to house rule something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I bet it's just a need to need to speed the game up sometimes if it goes too long.
Well, to the earlier point, if you've misread the rule, sometimes you do a house rule to say, oh, this game would be better, to counterbalance it. And then when you get it right, that teeter-totter flips to the other way.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I have played many games with these guys where their house rules like actually made sense. Like it actually made a game better. So these are very experienced gamers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in this situation, I was like, maybe let's just play the game.
I want all of our listeners to know that Jason is one of the most honest people I've ever met in my life. He is terrible at Secret Hitler. He is really, really bad. And that's like a really high compliment. Because if you're good at just like lying people, if you're on the bad guy side and you can look somebody dead in the face and
I can
and lie, it's just and we've probably known each other too well. That's probably too long. That's part of the problem too.
Yeah.
There have been.
I've never looked at someone straight in the eyes and lied to them, right, Jason?
No.
Let's just say
my wife to this day doesn't trust Justin because of Secret Hitler.
Let's just say we all had a mutual friend whose first name started with the letter F and the rest continued with Francesca, who could lie to me in the eyes every time we played any game, like any game that required that. I fell for it every single
to go
time.
into bloodthirsty game mode.
Every single time. I fell hook, line, and sinker.
We played Cash and Guns with her once. Yeah, that was fun.
I'm not throwing her under the bus, but
no, she's just a good gamer.
Really good gamer. Really good gamer.
She's in it to win it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So that was my Geek Week. What about you, Justin?
Nice. Let's see. Okay, so today is the last day of Diablo Season 2. Diablo 4 Season 2.
Oh, really?
My
Today's
daughter.
The last day, huh?
Today's the last day. New season's coming out tomorrow at about 1 p.m. Eastern.
Wow, I totally missed the second season. I played the first.
It was a good one. The second season
one.
was pretty good. It was like called the Season of Blood, and it was like a lot of vampire stuff, which was pretty good. So my daughter and I, man, we ground through it, and we just got to a point where our characters weren't powerful enough to get kind of those like last little bits of things, and we probably needed to do some deeper dives in how to like really retool our characters to up the level. But we did pretty good. We got up to, I think my character's level 97 right now or something like that out of 100, so it was a good effort. So I think next season I was playing a sorcerer this season. I think next season I'll be playing maybe a rogue or a barbarian. So I did a necromancer in the first game, and then the second one I did what did I do? Maybe another necromancer. I can't remember. Yeah, no, anyway, Necromancer Season 2, and then this one was a sorcerer, so I think I'll do a rogue or a barbarian. So we'll do it, just to have fun. We have good times grinding out in Diablo 4. I will say that the kind of the end game of Diablo 4 was a lot better, in my opinion, than the beginning game. Like, if you can, like, once you finish the campaign, like, some of the things that they unlock with, like, the, like, different dungeons that you can do and stuff like that, like, it gets more interesting as you go along. So, but it's hard because it's kind of a grind to get to that point, Anyway, so that's pretty good. My second Geek Week item, I don't think I have told any of you this, but my oldest daughter and we have kind of this thing that we do when she gets out of school a little early, and I'll take my lunch break like the same time she gets home from school, and we'll grab a quick bite for like 30 minutes, and we'll watch this guy on YouTube named Pete. He's a host of the Kill Pete channel, Kill Pete Strategy channel, and he plays Risk online, and he like does a whole lot of stuff. Well, he decided he's a super popular Risk internet content provider, And so we've been watching Risk games for like the last few months. And so I decided to enter his Kill Pete Open Tournament.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and play. And I'm an expert level Risk player online.
Nice.
Yeah, which is like squarely in the middle of the pack. It goes like beginner, novice, expert, master, grandmaster, right? So I'm like, or intermediate is before expert. So I'm squarely in the middle of the pack, and I'm squarely in the middle of the pack of the tournament too right now. I'm ranked 960 out of 1,700 people.
Wow, that's a lot of people in his tournament.
Yeah.
1,700, jeez.
Yeah, and actually it started out with more. There was like 2,500 at one point, but if you don't show up for your game, you get booted from the tournament, right? And so
wow.
So it started at like, I mean, you can tell them like, hey, I have a conflict, and they'll work to switch you and get you in. But if you just don't show up and don't communicate, they'll just like cut you out.
How long does
right?
a game take online?
It depends. I've played games that are over in like 20 minutes, and then I played games that are over in like 2 hours.
Wow.
Right.
Where do you find the time, man?
I
tell you where I can find the time. I can get rid of this little guy. I'll find some time.
Yeah. So, like the progressive, so Risk has two different like modes generally, right? Which is fixed and progressive, and that's like in the board game, and it depends on the cards you get, right? Like either they're fixed amounts, like you get 3 cannons, you get 3 horses, you get 3 troops. Like it'll give you a set amount of guys every time you turn in. Those games are always inherently longer, just because it takes forever. The progressive is the first guy that turns in, he gets 4, second 6, third 8, fourth 10. It goes like 10, 12, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, all the way up, right? And so like by the time you're turning in a set for 100 cards or 100 troops, like the game's going to be over in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Just because like it swings really fast.
And what's crazy is I really don't remember how to play Risk. Like the last time I played Risk with Dan was in your basement. We played like the Moon variant.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
is
interesting. Risk 22. I still have it on my shelf.
Yeah.
2210.
2210.
So
And you can play basic.
online.
You can play basic Risk with the 2210 box.
Mm-hmm. So I played that online. I do like the online. It's fast. You're not moving troops, and you know what I mean, individually and stuff like that. And so,
I understand exactly what you're doing. In the 1990s, I had a Risk emulator on my dad's Mac. And it was like one of his only games, and I would babysit my half siblings for hours. And I ran Risk like I would play 100 games a night.
Yeah.
Because that was the only game on the damn machine. And let me just say, when you run through a few thousand times, you start to see patterns, right?
Right.
And but that was in the 1990s. And I still love it. I won't give away my last copy of it, which is 2210. Because I can play the old thing and I can play the new thing at the same time. Jackson, my son, who's 11, is like, Dad, I think I'm ready to play Risk. And I thank you for bringing it up because I want to introduce that game.
Yeah, I mean it's fun, and like I enjoy playing it online just because it goes much faster than in person, obviously, and it's pretty. It gets very strategic, actually, much more than it used to be when I played with my friends, in the back room of my class in 8th grade when we got all of our work done. Our teacher had a copy of Risk, and we would just we'd speed through our work, and then we'd just play Risk for a long time. So yeah. Anyway, so that was kind of my Geek Week. I had round 2 last week ago, like the previous Thursday. Round 3 is coming up next Sunday, so I'll be playing in that. And it's fun because my daughter has been watching this with me, and now she'll sit next to me, and she's like, "Dad, you're the fish. You're the fish. You got to get out. You got to trade in your cards." Or she'll be like, like she's she's my consigliere, my wartime consigliere with Risk.
Good.
So yeah, we're having.
It's good to have another pair of eyes.
Good.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, that's that's pretty much my Geek Week. So good times with that. Good times. Awesome. Let's move on to our geek news.
We can do it. It can
Our
happen.
geek news.
Welcome to Tabletop and Beyond News. Watsy got caught for using AI artwork again. They posted on Twitter a number of tweets that they had bought art from an artist who was using AI tools to help assist in the generation of that art. As you all know, Magic the Gathering consumes a ton of art. Every single card they put out has unique art, and so they are consumers of high quantities, and they have a reputation of high quality as well. So the fact that they some AI stuff has slipped in is understandable because of the quantity, but based off of what they have been saying publicly before, makes them look a little. They have a little egg on the face because they have defended their no AI policy publicly before, and it's a good policy. Artists deserve to be paid, especially for a game as financially lucrative as Magic the Gathering.
So I feel like a company like Watsy needs to say, we will absolutely do our best to make sure that, AI art, that we're not using AI art. I mean, I think you have to hedge just a little bit because this wasn't them directly using it. Like they didn't realize that the artist that they had hired to do their art was using AI art. Do you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, we weren't sure what went into that secret sauce that everybody loved. And we're sorry about that. We just hired, the sauce maker and we didn't realize, you know what I mean? So I think it sucks because Watsy's going to take it on the face because of the rigid stance that they took. And I feel like you can kind of nuance it a little bit and basically say, look, we're going to do our best to try to vet, and we're going to try to make sure that every time that we use an artist doesn't have it. But if it does come up, then I don't know. I that's my thought.
Yeah, this is like one of those lose-lose situations where everybody walks away taking a punch from this. So I feel bad about it, but that's what's going on. So if you're going to be putting out product and charging top dollar and claiming that all the artists are being compensated, they have to have a different QA. But guess what? It's very difficult to detect AI in art, especially if it's been brought into Photoshop and it's been photoshopped 50 times. If the artist starts with the AI and edits it, it's even that much more difficult to detect. So,
right.
But considering they have more money than any other game company and the most lucrative game in gamer history, they should figure it out. I have faith in them. They should be able to figure it out.
I hate to say this, but I think it's nice and noble that all these companies are saying we don't want AI art. But dude, Pandora's box is open and it's the taint is going to be everywhere, believe it or not.
To be honest, it would be a very efficient way to get very high quality products to market faster. If you don't, not very high quality, of mediocre quality, you could get mediocre quality to market a lot faster.
Yeah. I mean, we've had episodes on this, but I think this is an example of, resisting an evolution versus trying to shape the evolution to your benefit. The longer and longer that you just fight against that brick wall, that thing is going to turn into an ocean wave that just takes over you versus early on, if you had said, how do we actually work around this and find a way to find the compromise and the happy zone between, then we can all shape its journey together. Right now, it's just people are taking such black and white stances on this that we're losing progression that we could have in between. That's my opinion.
That's an important opinion. And there's what we're doing today, and now get into a time machine 10, 15 years from now, and then we'll be like, well, what does the world look like then? So, all right, our next news item, Ravensburger, a really big-time publisher that has big-time contracts. They have a contract with Disney, by the way, and they've put out a bunch of Disney-themed games. They have a really interesting, different product coming out called Chronicles of Light: Darkness Falls Disney Edition, which is a rules light RPG based on targeted to younger girls and to introduce role-playing games to them where they take on the role of a strong female character from Disney or Pixar. So it's unique in a bunch of different ways. Number one, it's associated with one of the biggest IP pillars there have ever been, right? Disney, going back to Snow White, right? And it's a role-playing game, and they're trying to introduce role-playing game to maybe a group of players who would be introduced to D&D otherwise, and maybe a little older. So they're targeting this to be a little bit younger, to be a story-driven game. So I think it's very interesting. It's interesting that Ravensburger would come out with a role-playing game. They're not known for putting out like industrial-grade role-playing games. And not that this one is, but that's not what they're known for. They're known for taking an IP and, you know, putting a game engine on it and making it immersive. So I think it's interesting, and I think it's worth paying attention to. If it picks up and becomes a big seller, then that means the hobby grows into kind of a new market that has probably been underserved to this point.
Yeah, I bet we had a guest on. Oh man, it's been over a year now. Stephanie with TTRPG Kids, and I bet she will be all over this. So
you know, because all you'll have to do is watch a couple of Disney or Pixar movies, and that's your lore barrier to entry to get into the game. I mean, gosh, that's a pretty low barrier to entry. Much different than coming up with your own IP and trying to spin a role-playing game to kids and saying, hey, you should play this game, when they can say, oh, I just want to go be Tiana, or I want to be, one of the Incredibles or something like that.
So I'm going to choose to be one of the characters from Inside Out, but then role play it from the movie Inner Space with Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. Martin Short and Meg Ryan. Yeah.
That's a classic movie.
So,
I like that movie.
That movie is amazing. It holds up too, by the way. I've watched it.
I am quite old, and I know I saw that in the theater. So yeah. Okay.
So good.
Anyway, just wouldn't that be a fun? Maybe we should buy a copy, and as a bunch of farty old 40-plus-year-old men, we should play it and say,
$30.
It's only $30.
Only $30.
That's what we said about the FFG Star Wars box set. Oh, it's only $25. Let's just play the starter box and see what happens. 10 years later, how many hours have been logged for us in that game? All right. Next item of news. For all of those listeners who have attempted maybe Kill Team and have gotten killed playing Kill Team, there is a new skirmish game coming out based on Halo. So the multi-billion-dollar video game franchise is getting a tabletop miniatures combat game this year thanks to UK games developer Mantic Games. They have a deal with Xbox and Microsoft, and it's going to be a 40-millimeter scale team combat miniatures game. And it's going directly to retail this year in September, skipping Kickstarter. That means they're going to print a product whether or not they know they can sell that product, which is an act of great confidence in the era of Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Yeah, it is.
So if you didn't start hearing the Halo theme in your brain as Dan was reading that, then there's something wrong with you. Dun, 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 right? So Mantic Games has a long history, I'm sharing my screen right now, a long history with tabletop miniature games with some of the best models in like the Kings of War. Do you remember these, Jason, seeing these?
Yeah.
It doesn't want to do it for me. But yeah, that's pretty good. But I was interested because they have this game Firefight here that always reminded me of the Halo game. Actually, it's very sci-fi. You see, like you've got kind of drop ships and tanks and stuff like that. So I think that this is probably the right company to take this on. I think that they'll put out some good products. My only concern is that it is going to be freaking expensive because Hellboy the board game was like a game that was like way overpriced for what it was. Like for example, right here, this is the game, and it's $110. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy, like that's a lot. That's a lot.
I
You know
think
what I mean?
as Games Workshop purchasers will notice, there is a crossing the Atlantic tax for some of these, right?
Yeah.
Shipping, getting product across the Atlantic Ocean is not as cheap as getting it from China.
Yeah. Like some of these, you can see some of these models, like they do a great job modeling. So I think that, like thinking about the Covenant and stuff like that, and, some of the guys that you got to put on there, I think is going to be great. So
we know they can sculpt. We know they're going to be accurate. They're probably going to get access to the 3D sculpts from the different games to work with.
Right.
So, and this will not be their first tabletop game. They've got Dead Zone and Firefight and Kings of War and Armada, and they've got all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, it should be cool. There have been other, I think there have been other Halo products in the past on the tabletop board game space. Maybe not a dedicated war game, skirmish game, but it is good for skirmish games to see other IPs want to jump into the skirmish game space. Besides what we typically have with, Star Wars and Games Workshop and a few of the others.
Do you think that the skirmish market is becoming a bit saturated, though?
I will find out with Halo because they have, number one, first of all, it's sci-fi. Second of all, it's an IP that people are more comfortable with than, let's say, the Warhammer IP. I mean, as far as bringing in new players. So I'm bullish on skirmish games, and I think what you guys, I don't know if it was you or it was Salty C that we're talking about. A lot of the game publishers now are making sure they have a skirmish game on for most of their lines. So not just Games Workshop, but a few of the other ones, because the large, massive army multi-hour game model is a lot harder to. That's a harder pill to swallow than a skirmish game. And I think skirmish games are a really good balance of depth and fun and interest in customization. So I'm really biased. I think all my war games I play, with the exception of Legion, would fall under the skirmish game classification.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Very good. Very good.
Well, that's the news that I have brought.
Okay. Excellent. Well, that brings us to our main topic of the evening, which is, again, this lesser-known game, ISS Vanguard. I'm sure it's actually very popular. Jason's smirking at me. So, Jason, this is your game. This is your Christmas present.
Yeah.
So why don't you take it away for us and kick us off?
Yeah. All right. So ISS Vanguard, right? So first question is, where did this thing come from and who makes it? So Awaken Realms makes this game. Awaken Realms is one of their probably most popular, well-known games is Nemesis. So Nemesis is a very popular game. It's the one that has very strong, a lot of people say it is the Aliens game without being aliens, right? Feeling like you're in a spaceship or a starship that's been invaded by, you will all wake up from stasis and it's been invaded by some alien and you're trying to keep the spaceship alive while still trying to achieve your objective. And it just all goes wrong and they're, hunting you through the corridors and things like that. Another game and that they make, and actually, Justin, you and I demoed this at Gen Con this past year, was Lords of Ragnarok. Do you remember that?
Oh, did they?
Yep.
Oh,
that
wow. I really liked that game. That was fun.
So they have pretty good miniatures, but their games aren't they're not focused around the miniatures necessarily. There's mechanics, and at their heart, they're board games, right? And the minis are there just to kind of give you an aesthetic that you move around the board. But interestingly, you say kind of a small game. So ISS Vanguard was...
Well, I said little known game. I didn't say little.
Little name. was not a Kickstarter. It was a GameFound game.
Okay.
So,
All
but
right.
effectively crowdsourced, right? They raised $4.9 million when they were
Oh.
first backed, and it was funded in December of 2020 originally.
Okay.
Looking at the stats, it looks like it was about 29,000 people backed it. Backed it for about.
I see $11.9 million.
Oh yeah. Oh, was that the original or the reprint?
Oh, maybe that was the reprint. Yeah, the original was 4.9. You're right.
Yep. Yep.
So the reprint though had 11.9.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. It grew in popularity big time. Pretty interesting, right? So I love this game. Let me pull up. Let me share my screen. Share. This is easier when I am an admin, but I'm not an admin right now. So here we go.
Okay.
No, that's fine. We got it. Here we go.
Do I need to kick you from the studio?
Sure. Don't kick me from the studio. So here's Awaken Realms' website. Another game that they have, Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. There's actually a video game version of this, which is a lot of fun. But anyway,
I believe we played a demo of this 2 Gen Cons ago.
Oh, we might have, yeah.
It was pretty metal like demo booth, pretty hardcore. Like I felt like I didn't need to be blasting like Black Sabbath or something like that in there.
Yeah. So ISS Vanguard, you can tell from the aesthetic, right? The beauty of the art there. And I'll say this game is huge. I mean, this game was a labor of love to make. There are, I don't even know, maybe like 1,000 cards in this game box. And every card has unique art. Every single one has unique art, unique story on it, elements on it. And they all have this style of art on it as well. You can see kind of down here, right? Like there's detailed minis associated with it. So pull that guy, see if it pulls up, right? So lots of, and that's obviously, I think that's a teardrop paint on it, which when they make games, a lot of their games, you can buy their minis teardropped or sun-dropped. Is it teardropped or sun-dropped? I think sun-dropped is how they say.
Sun-dropped. Yeah.
Yeah, sun-dropped. But these cards, I mean, like here's an example of the artwork on the cards, right? Just gorgeous artwork there on these cards, and the dice, all these tons of unique dice, just tons of unique components. So I will say this: this game has a lot of components. You have to really like. This is the kind of game that I set up in my basement on my table, and I leave it set up in the basement on my table.
Still not as much as Arkham Horror, though.
No. So yeah. So
no,
Arkham,
it's on par.
I would say it's on par. Arkham Horror had a lot of individual card decks, but those card decks like all had to be shuffled. They all had to be laid out on the table, and so it was like this arduous chore just to get the game ready to play. Whereas in this game, they probably have the same amount of cards, but those cards are they're not all shuffled decks, and they're maintained inside their little boxes, and you just pull them out of the box when you need them. So I think it's actually easier to manage the components.
I would agree. I've been around a lot of games where the game designers or the producers leave the organization to you. Mm-hmm. I would quickly throw FFG under the bus. They have great games with tons of components, but they really don't blink an eye when it comes to helping you organize it compared to some other game companies. And this game, ISS Vanguard, had card boxes with tab cards, right? They had ways that you can put the cards in a box designed for those cards, and you can quickly tab through to figure out where everything goes. It's actually much more efficient than laying them all out as decks.
Totally.
In a way you probably see in like an older Arkham Horror game.
Yeah, here's an example that Dan was just talking about, right? You can see these little boxes, and then you've got the tabs these tab cards are just a little bit taller, so they give you a really nice break. So all the recruits, the people you can hire in your crew, are back in here. All of the mission cards are behind this. All of the planetary areas you can visit are in every one of these cards is unique, has unique art on it. Or I would say there might be a handful of them that maybe reuse things, but it feels like they're all unique at the end of the day, with flavor text and everything. Really, really just an amazing kind of labor of love there.
Everything is very thoughtfully designed. The thought behind all of these little moving pieces, you can tell the people, like you said, labor of love. It's like they didn't walk away from the importance of a strong design.
Yep.
For the player. It's designed to help the player be successful.
Yeah. And even beyond all of that, they made an app. A companion app.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This game is a story immersive game. There's like 1,000 logs, so close to 1,000 logs in the game of story elements. When you go to when you hit a certain point in the game or you trigger a certain event, it tells you open the logbook, go to log 598 and read the text. And there's like a choose your own adventure there. Well, they have a companion app, and every single one of those logs is voice acted with sound effects. And hours of content that have been provided for this game. So in terms of the quality of the game, the art, the aesthetic, the components, the box itself, top notch, high quality. I would absolutely have expected this game to cost somewhere on the order of like 200 plus when I bought this huge box.
250.
Yeah, 250. And I got it. My wife got it for me on Amazon somewhere on the order of about 120 to 130.
It's a steal. It's hard to tell in the photographs if you're on Board Game Geek just how big the box is and how much stuff you get. It's for $125 just in the unique dice alone. I mean, a huge chunk of that 125 is being chewed up with the bespoke dice, the large quantity of bespoke dice that come with the game.
I could show you, trying to find a picture of the box. Here's everything laid out on my desk, how I leave it when I'm playing the game. So you can see, right, like there's a normal size dice that's like a standard D6 size.
16 millimeter.
Yeah, 16 millimeter. And right there's the size of the box, and all of this stuff is inside it. It's huge. The thing probably weighed like 20 pounds. And there's, of course, my phone because I was using the app on it at the same time. But just a massive amount of content. You've got specialized several different types of dice that are there that represent your skills, that represent injuries, that represent danger dice that you can roll on. Tokens for commanding and energy points. Just lots of different components, and I kind of take a moment to go through all of them without just rehashing everything. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to this book, the ship book, when you play the game. And this is a 3-ring binder. Like, I don't know how many board games I have played with a 3-ring binder in it.
Ooh, please send more feet pics.
Yeah. Buy a 3-ring binder at a grocery store. You'll see the big chunk of $125 is just in the 3-ring binder.
Yeah. This game is so massive, you can save a game. You can save your game. Like, they knew you're going to need to save your game. And every time you sit down to play a session of this game, it's going to be probably about they say 2 to 4 hours. I'm averaging about 3 hours every time I sit down to play it. So you play it from start, from back forward inside of this book. And when you get to the end, it tells you how to save your game. And you take all of your cards and components and put them in this little bag. And the next time you come to play, you just follow the instruction. It tells you how to take them out of the bag and kind of basically reset the entire state of the table. So you could pack it up and then come back a week later with the same group of friends and just pull all those crazy amounts of components and set yourself back up to play the game very easily. There, I can tell they put this through a lot of people to figure out what's the best way to do this.
So I'm gonna make a comparison between this game and Gloomhaven, which is another one where like you have to play over multiple sessions, right? This game, in my opinion, was vastly superior to Gloomhaven when it came to pausing your campaign and picking it up again. First off, there's a great, like, I mean, you follow the instructions, you play the game, you roll the dice, you do your thing, and then at the end of it, like you said, Jason, it says, okay, now you're at the end of the session, either flip back to the beginning and start again, or like here's how you save your game, right? And like you talked about, which was great. Gloomhaven kind of didn't have that. You just kind of boxed it up, and I mean, you had to kind of write down like, all right, well, we've done. You had a poster that you put stickers on of like,
Yeah.
these are the places that we went to, and then you would like put those stickers in the book. Those are places we went to. But I found myself a lot of times, especially since there was like, a couple of weeks between each session that we would play, where I would say like, what did we do last time? And wait, did we talk to that guy before, or do we do that step before, or do we need to do that step again? Because there was like a whole return to town step.
Mm-hmm.
And like you could do that before or after you boxed it up. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of like you had to be like, wait, did we already do that step, or do we need to do it again? This leaves no ambiguity about where you end your game. You know what I mean? Like, it is there, and then when you pick up, it's literally like, put the stuff in the bag and close the box. And now it's like, okay, open up the bag and take the stuff out. So like you're picking up exactly where you need to continue your game, which for me reduces a lot of stress and angst. You know what I mean? Because like there's times where you're just like, wait, did I do this thing? I can't remember. And then you think about like, well, am I going to mess it up if I do this again or not? And like just having that peace of mind of like, I know I'm starting where I need to is like a big win for me.
There's enough of you can see right here on the side when you first open the book, past the save point, there is this kind of, this is everything you're going to do. You can see where the arrow is. You turn the page and it shows you where you are in the progress. Every time you play a session, you're going to go through, let me zoom in, bridge. You're going to do some stuff on the bridge of your ship. You're going to go to the star map and fly to different systems and do things inside those systems. You're going to take care of some stuff on board, whether you're doing production or science, research or production, hiring new recruits on the ship, dealing with situations on the ship. You're going to go to the hangar and get your lander geared out, get your team all geared out. You're going to drop down to the planet inside the system you flew to, do a bunch of story missions down on the planet, leave the planet, dock, unload all the gear, get a debriefing, put the people that inevitably get hurt down on the planet in med bay, those who died to the memorial wall, save your game, and if you want to keep playing, start all over. And it seems like a lot every time you turn this page, but really what it's doing is these steps move really quickly. They tell you, here's what you do to get ready to play this page. And then you get, and it's kind of hard because of my camera light there, but you set up, you open the book, you're going to do a little bit of automation, and then every page has some decisions for you to make. So I feel like every time I played this game, at first I was worried I was going to feel like I was on rails a lot. But I don't feel like I'm on rails. I feel like I'm on rails to go to the next thing to do in the ship, but then there's a lot of choices that have an impact all the way through all of those situations there. And they use this really cool thing inside this book where they have these card sleeves that represent things like bridge upgrades, right? Like improved solar panels. I get +1 energy whenever I generate energy. I had to like create that by going to Undo a Planet, finding some research thing, bringing it back, unlocking a production queue, and then eventually pushing that through the production queue and creating this bridge upgrade, which raised my tech level so that now I produce more energy. And hopefully along the way, keep the morale of my crews at a level that doesn't give me some problem, right? So it's just all sorts of really cool things. And it's pushing you through something like a 100 to 200 hour campaign. With
and
objectives.
There's a major expansion too.
Yeah, so tons and tons of stuff to do there. So you go to the bridge, you can go to ship facilities, and you can spend command points to hire new people. Let me pull back to that one's a little blurry. Here's a production queue where you put cards for production projects inside this queue, and then every time you cycle through the book, you slide everything to the right one, and you can do things like apply your crewmates to help push it to the right to accelerate production. But essentially, these cards kind of move left to right, and then once they pop out, it pops out of the queue and you get the thing on the back of the card.
This is a
so
great
you feel like you're really
mechanic.
working your ship.
This is a great mechanic to experience time passing
Yes.
and investing. It's not like draw a card, play a card. It's draw a card, and you're going to plant a seed and you're going to reap that later. And so the choices you make of what you want to research actually, when you reap that full benefit, you don't actually know the context of what adventure you're going to be on. You just know, gosh, I hope this will help us when we get to the next vista.
Well, and sorry, I was going to say, what I really liked about this too is that when you were on adventures, you sometimes discover something very specific that unlocks a very specific card. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're just going through that little thing and rifling through and be like, ooh, this one looks good. This one looks good. I'm going to use this one. It's like the best upgrade first that I'm going to do. Like it's very much like a tech tree based on your discovery and adventure that you do. And they're like a lot of things are interconnected and stuff like that. And so I cannot even like begin to fathom the thought that went through of being like, okay, well, if they go do this mission, then they get this one, which will then affect that mission, which, you know what I mean? Like the spider web that they had to create, like, or the flow chart must have been literally the size of a building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like of different things that they had, because like it really is like quite astounding that how everything works together.
Yeah. So Dan, you said something that really brought the uniqueness of this game out. Because I've played a lot of 4X games, and the time phasing really felt immersive in this one. You know, you're coming through here. I'm dealing. All right, I've flown to a new area in this system. Let's get some projects installed. I get the project installed. I'm going to go down to the planetary surface and do like 2.5 hours of a totally almost different game. Totally have forgot about what's in my production queue.
Yeah.
And by the next time I have that whole adventure down on the planetary surface and come back up to my ship, unload everything, and go back to the bridge, then it's time to see, oh, how did the production queue thing? And I open the book and I'm like, oh, that's right. I was researching this. Let's see what happens when it pops out. It really gives that sense of, hey, stuff's happening up in the ship in space while I'm down on the planet doing things.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, here's an example of the hangar, you know, different landers and ships that you can get, and you can research and unlock new ships. I've only unlocked 2 right now, but just to give you a sense of the artwork, right? Like, you know, one of the first things I think we saw, like Justin, you saw this and it immediately made you think of Halo, right?
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a Covenant dropship.
Yeah, I look at this and I immediately think of Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Yes, this had a very Mass
Shepard.
Effect feeling where you're going to the bridge, you do a thing on the bridge, you go around, you know, you have different things to do on the ship, and then you go down to the planet, and that happens, and then what happens on the ship changes after you've been down to the planet.
Yep. You go down to the planet. When you come back from the planet, you can unload special crystalline things, unique discoveries. If you fill up all those unique discoveries, you unlock a bridge upgrade right here, card B11. So there's just like you said, man, it's like the side of a building on what they had to think of when they were making this. Here's an example of 2 guys. Notice he's back in 2 guys here that got hurt when they were down in the down on the planet, and based on the severity of their injuries, they have to kind of slide back in the med bay queue. So these guys aren't even going to be available again for another couple runs of missions that I've done. You really just get this awesome sense of time mattering in the game. And then of course you can save it at the end there.
That's so good. And
let me just throw real quick, when you are moving between systems, there's this little card called your current system, and this is a whole like book, like a comic book, that says, hey, let's fly to a new system. And every system has planetary bodies that you can go explore, and you can read it's hard to see, but you can read logs associated with them all. Just so much content. I mean, I could see this. Here's an example of the logbook, right? Just massive amount of details in the logbook. And if you don't like reading, cool. There's an app, and they're all voiced over. So
and they're professionally voiced.
Yeah,
these are not gamers trying to do a cool voice. These are actually actors, performers.
Yeah,
it's very well done.
Yeah, let me hit 3 more components, and then we can kind of get into our thoughts here. But when you're getting ready to go down to the surface, you grab the lander that you chose. So this was obviously that first one that I said had kind of a Mass Effect feel, right? And you can load up with equipment, mining probes, and stuff for your guys. You can modify the lander to give it, better navigation, more supplies, more gear. And each lander has its special things that make it easier for you to get you to the surface. Getting to the surface of the planet's a mini game that can go bad. It can go poorly or positively. You can scan the planets to give you hints about things that you want to bring to the planet to make it easier to work on the planet. So there's everywhere you turn in this game, there's like mini games associated with it. And then there's your crew. Every time you go down to the planet, you select crew, and there's 4 types. There's engineering, security, science, and then recon. And every one of them has their own specialized dice that you can upgrade and unlock, their own cards. So it's almost a deck building game a little bit. When they're down on the surface, they draw cards to help. And you're rolling dice to do dice checks to try to succeed on the planetary surface, which gets to the last component I wanted to hit. And I'm kind of pushing through these, but you guys can go online and watch people play videos and stuff. Is the planets is a whole binded book itself for every single surface that you go down to.
It's spiral bound, so you open up the book and it's your board for that mission.
Yeah. And it has it has sectors. Individual sectors have logs. When you make your way to that sector, when the book first opens, you have no idea what's going to happen. When you get there, you read the log. It'll tell you to pull a card from that box, place the card on there. Now you have to deal with the situation there. And those cards can progress through a story on that individual sector. And they're all connected. They have challenges for moving between. There's unique discoveries that you can have. There's missions. There's global effects. Like maybe there's a windstorm, and every time you do a dice check, you have to throw a danger dice in there. It's just, the planet game itself is almost the planet exploration itself is a game all into itself.
Right.
Down there.
And that itself takes like 2 hours. I would say it's the bulk of the session that you run.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're going through the ship stuff, which is, it probably takes about a third of the time to get done. But then the planet side seems to be about 2/3 of the time. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of decisions to make on where to take your guys, how to use their skills together, how to tackle the problems, and just make decisions on where I'm going to go and progress the story. And you got to take risks. And people get hurt, and they got to go to med bay and get evac out.
They may be stuck in the med bay, so you can't use them for your next mission.
Yep.
You might like on your first turn on the planet take 2 out of 3 wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who that happened to.
And just have to try to survive after that.
Yeah. And actually, there's one last thing I want to show. Going back to this crew deck, right? If you look at this crew card, you notice every crew member, by the way, I don't even know how, there's like 200 or 300 crewmen or something. And they're all unique. They all have unique names, unique art. They duplicate their special abilities, but they've all got flavor text on the back. And they have these special abilities here. And this guy looks like this card was made to be an engineering card. But in reality, if you look closely, there's a sleeve. You sleeve these cards, recruit cards into the engineering sleeve. Mm-hmm. And as they go down to the surface and they do really awesome stuff and they gain experience, you can upgrade them. So I would take this guy out of a sleeve and put him into another sleeve that had 2 bars, which would free this sleeve up to recruit another guy in engineering. So you can really start to build your on staff crew, and you use these staff to accomplish things while you're on the ship. So if I jump to the production queue, notice these symbols right here. Those are the symbols that match their crew cards. So if I wanted to accelerate my production before I went to the planet, when I had my big stack of crew guys in my hand, I could start applying crew members to the production to accelerate my production. but that means that they're not available to go down to the planetary surface. So you kind of have all these little decisions about how to apply your people to take care of things on the ship or get ready to go down to the surface. And if they go to the surface, they're probably not going to be available to help on the ship until a couple turns have gone as they get better. It just really provides this immersive sense of a living like organism that is your colony on this ship trying to move through space. Yeah. So probably the last, that's probably the last big mechanic.
That is a really cool mechanic. I like the fact that that's a customization point too, because you may find a guy the first time you sleeve him, you made him an engineer. The second time you play through, you make him recon, and you'll discover that maybe he's way better at recon than he was at engineering.
Yeah.
I had a character that was sleeved for security, who spent the whole entire mission doing science stuff and like ignoring her security job. But that's how we beat the mission. She was selected for the mission because she had biological skills and she was security. Well, push came to shove, and we had to complete the mission, not defend the troops. Sorry, guys.
So it's interesting. You said this has about 100 to 2 hours of campaign, right? Like this is very much a campaign game that you play.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be considered anything but. Like you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can sit down and run a session, but it's going to ultimately be part of the campaign that you're running.
Yeah, this is not a one board game beginning, middle, end.
Yeah,
exactly. I would recommend against even trying to do that.
So there actually is a mode for it.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called, but they have a name for it, and there's a separate thinner book than the logbook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's basically like this game in like 1 to 2 sessions.
1 to 2 sessions.
So if somebody's like, I want to play this game, but I can't commit to like a ton, you could play it in like, if you wanted to, you could play it in 1 day with a friend or maybe 2.
And I think a really good question for us is, who is ISS Vanguard for? And I have an opinion on that. I think it's for a group
Not
of
for my wife.
Not for your wife. Yeah. Yes.
Or mine.
Okay. So let's say you have a group of 3 or 4 people that want to get together and play a board game on the same board game on a pretty frequent basis, weekly or something close to that. And you don't want to run an RPG, and nobody wants to be the GM. I own 11 Star Trek Adventures books. In some way, ISS Vanguard, I think, is more rules crunchy than a fully fleshed out RPG in some very real ways. So if you want a real crunchy thing where you're going to be customizing your ship, and you like that kind of Voyager thing where it's just you guys, you're not part of a fleet, you're alone in the universe, and you've got a mission to do to, make Earth a better place. But Earth is nowhere near where you are. And you got a group of people who want to get together and do that. And I think that's a really good fit. Maybe people who like Gloomhaven is kind of like D&D for people who just want to do the board game part of D&D and don't want to do the adventure and think maybe the role play part is lame of D&D. This is kind of like that, but you're going to be managing a lot more strategy that will pays off over a long term. That I'm not even sure Gloomhaven has that level of, I'm going to do a thing now that'll affect my strategy in future missions, or
not to this extent. I mean,
not to this extent. Yeah.
You would unlock bonuses. You would eventually
it's about optimization.
Yeah, exactly. And you would eventually like retire your character and then start a new one, but you'd have bonuses with it, And so like, this one is very much like, it almost feels like a real-time strategy game too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
and
production.
And like a Mass Effect game where there's a story happening too.
Yeah, for sure. So,
yeah, I mean, you have a limited production queue, and based on the time phasing, it's like, well, I got 5 or 6 production projects I want. I've only got 2 queues, and they all start in different places. I don't want to be, if I load these up, I'm not going to get to this one for like, probably like 15 hours of real life time now.
Yeah.
So you got to make those choices.
Yeah, and unlike an RPG where people really get attached to their character, you're going to be managing dozens of characters, and then they're going to die. People are going to, or get massively wounded. And so a lot of what you're doing is selecting the right people to go do a thing in a way that dropping a meeple is nowhere close to the level of like dropping a meeple ain't no thing compared to this. This is like, okay, I'm definitely not going to take so-and-so with me who could be really helpful defeating what was the monster we fought? The brambles monster, some sort of plant monster or something. The thicket the carnivorous thicket.
Carnivorous thicket.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is really, really good. If you like sci-fi exploration, sci-fi, not space opera, Star Wars Space Odyssey. Like you're going into the black and you don't know what you're going to find. I highly recommend it. But it's got to be one of those things where you get a little bit of commitment from a cadre of people who want to come back and play with you a bunch of times. Otherwise, it becomes a great unrealized board game you have on your shelf. That's
okay. Yes and no, because as we demonstrated, Jason was in the middle of his campaign and we jumped in on a session with him.
Yeah.
It totally worked.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
what the great thing about this is that you could play 3 or 4 sessions by yourself and you're like, hey guys, come over and play this game with me. And you play one session together and still have a great time. And
you'll never do that in RPG. Never. You
can't, right?
No.
And like unless it's like some sort of side tangent mission that you're doing, right? And that's not
even close.
It's not the same. And so all Jason had to do with us has been like, hey, I've been to these planets before. Here's some of the upgrades that we have. What's our next mission? Let's go. And we're like, okay, cool. Like, let's do it. And we were totally in, And so that I think is actually a huge strength of this game is that you can pause the game when you're solo playing. And then the next time you have your friends over, you can hit play again and they're in it with you as if nothing had happened. Right.
Yeah.
And you play that. So,
we could have
never seen.
We remember that planet when we had the conversation where we said, and Jason, you said, oh, well, I've been to this planet. I've kind of gotten most of the story out of it. And we had to go back to it for some reason. And you're like, should I reset it? We're like, don't reset it. We want to go back to the planet the way you left it. And that was awesome. Actually, that was super awesome.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Actually, when you visit a planet, this game is very good about removing cards from the game. So there are a couple planets where if you go down to that planet, when you end the story on that planet, something drastic happens to the planet. And it literally says, remove this planet's landing card from the game. So you can never return to the planet. Right. But when it doesn't do that, instead, it has a tiny little notebook sheet that you actually record the state of the planet on when you leave it, meaning what planetary cards were in what sector. So that I could go to 5 or other different planets. And for some reason, if I wander back here to this planet and I open it, I would pull that card out and that planet's state would be saved from the last time I was there.
That's a level of depth that you expect from a PC console game, or a PC game or a console game that you wouldn't expect from a board game.
Not from a board game,
which I think is very, very good.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point that I feel to a good point, Dan. Having probably poured about 12 hours into this game so far, this game feels a lot like a computer game in a board game fashion.
Yeah.
Like if the apocalypse happened and the power went out and we never had power again or computers, I could play this game and feel like I was playing a computer game.
Yeah.
Well, and there's something to be said for being in real space with other human beings playing a board game that has something special about it that you can't get from playing online with other players.
Yeah.
So it's the balance between that.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, okay, so earlier I mentioned, you said, Jason, that it's 100 to 200 hour campaign. It's $100 to $200 depending on where you find it. I mean, if you do the math, you're getting value of about $1 an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the MSRP is $159, which is crazy.
So what's interesting is we were just complaining about the Hellboy game being $110. I would not complain about this game being $159, like a bit, because like you're going to find the value in this. And I put a question in here, Jason, about replayability, but it was almost a little tongue in cheek because I think if you play this game all the way through, would you play it again? What do you think?
I I don't know, because here's the thing. When if I play it all the way, first of all, if I played all the way through and I put 100 hours into the game, I'm probably good.
Yeah,
To be
right,
honest.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's point one right there, right?
Yeah. Point two, though,
who puts
if I
100 hours into a board game?
Yeah.
You know,
there's going to be other things to play.
right?
But even if I did say that was so cool, I'm going to do it again, and I would start over. There are different choices you can make in the logbook along the way. But at the end of the day, when you come to a planet, you know what the story is on that planet. So
and it doesn't change. That story won't change.
There are a couple situations where you can roll a dice to determine what mission you need to do when you're on that planet. But the planet is still the planet, right? Like, I still know what the challenges are. I know that. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's like 80 to 100 hours later.
Right.
You know, I don't know if I would need to, because I've got 12 hours into the game right now, and mechanically it feels repetitive, but I enjoy the mechanics. But story-wise, like, I am trailblazing with every minute I put into the game. It's like new logs, new story, new things. 12 hours in still, and I'm only like a very tiny amount of the way through the game.
Yeah.
So what I wouldn't recommend this game for someone who likes to have a shelf of 100 board games and wants to pull a different game down, every time they play games, and they don't like to recycle the same game over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get the full experience of what it's offering.
I agree. If you pulled this out and played it once, and then it only came out when a bunch of people came over and picked other games, you'd only play it like once every, maybe every few months, and you wouldn't get your monies out of it.
But I would say in a lot of ways, it's as far as a financial investment, it beats the pants off of any war game that we play, as far as dollars to hour. I mean, really. I mean, this little teeny tiny box of 3 little guys on horses, is 66% of what you would pay for this gigantic Vanguard box. So I think it's a really high value game. If you know you're going to play it, if you think you're going to play it 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times, that would be a very, very efficient investment of a cool sci-fi game.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
It's great.
And
we recommend it.
Highly recommend. And I'm glad to see that they had some expansions out, because to me, that's where the true replayability, I'm putting that in air quotes here, right, is like more planets to explore that's not part of the main story, right? Yeah. And like I feel like this could be a very winning and profitable model for them, because all they need to do is come out with some extra story, maybe a little notebook and some extra mission cards or something like that. Because if you can use your base set of guys, you could use, so maybe some extra
they have
cards or something.
A $25 deck of personnel you can get, or for 80, you can get 80 new characters for $25.
Yeah,
it'll be very different every time.
Yeah, so I think again, like, if you're looking at kind of board game models, an expansion to this game is the right model. Sometimes expansions aren't great for board games. Sometimes they're like, they try to just kind of bolt on some extra stuff, and it doesn't always work. But in expansion here, what you're really talking about is the next chapter of the book. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the next chapter of the story that you're telling. And I think that's awesome. And that's exactly what people want.
I would not recommend this. I would not recommend everybody in your gaming group owning a copy. It's kind of like it's kind of like Twilight Imperium. If we all owned it, we never get around to play that game for 10 hours. One guy needs to own it in your gaming group. So that is a plus and a minus of it. I know there's a bunch of games that we all have dupes of on our shelf because we like to, they're easy go-tos. This one, I would say, if you're in the hankering to play ISS Vanguard, and you got to call Jason and say, Jason, are you going to run Vanguard again? Because that would be great.
Yeah. Great game. Highly recommend. especially if you're a sci-fi nerd, if you like anything that deals with, lots of immersive stories, ship management, like the game is basically you're managing your colony out on this ship. This is the game for you. I love this thing. Yep. It's right up there with me for Twilight Imperium. I think I told you this, Justin. Stop stuttering there. But this game is probably right now my favorite 4X-ish cooperative game. Whereas Twilight Imperium is still, I think, my favorite 4X competitive game. Yeah.
Did we not say that it was co-op when we started discussing it? Did we miss that?
I think, well, if you hadn't gathered that from this point forward, yes, it's not a competitive game. It is a cooperative game.
Yeah.
Although I will still also say my favorite faster, low component count 4X game is Alien Frontiers. Not the dice, not to be confused with the dice game that we all
Alien Encounters, is that one?
Alien Encounters, yeah. Look at no, but anyways, great game.
Cool, awesome. Thank you for bringing this to attention. Thank you to your wife for getting this for you.
Yeah.
Was this on your list that you basically like, hey, this is the thing that you need to buy me for Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, I've got this Christmas wish list. There's only one thing on the list. Exactly.
Yeah. I have to correct myself real quick. So Alien Frontiers is actually the game we hate. Don't get Alien and Frontiers. It's Alien Artifacts.
I know. I just looked it up and went, guys, are we okay?
Yeah, no.
Alien Frontiers.
That was a fact check right there.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to bring on the Alien Frontiers game designer and verbally abuse them.
I don't think we should ever do that.
That would go very badly.
No,
I'm
go very badly.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Justin,
Justin would not do well on that show. So, okay. So thank you, Jason, for bringing this game up. I did not realize that these were the same people that did like Castles of Burgundy. That's like a real hot game out right now. They did the Great Wall game that was like super hot commodity at Gen Con last year. Yeah. And so like I need to pay more attention to this to Awaken Realms. Like they're the publisher of like a lot of these games. As you pointed out, Nemesis is like their big one. And they're coming out with a new Nemesis Retaliation.
Yep.
And so like they've got a lot of I'm like going through this and I'm just like, wow, they've got a lot of great looking games.
Just on the art value alone, everything is super high quality.
Yeah. So, and they all look like, I know that Great Wall box was about the same size as your ISS Vanguard box. And so I think that there's probably a lot of value in their games that they do, so
yep.
Very cool. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, our listeners, to this. If you've got questions, excuse me. Oh boy, I'm wrapping up, but I'm joking.
If you got questions, post them down in the comment sections.
That's true. Post them down there. Also, click on our Discord. Join our Discord. Then we can really chat about the game in the Discord, and you can get firsthand feedback from Jason about how his game is going, along with, and I'm not going to make any promises, but more feet pics from him. I know some of you people are into that. So, anyway, hope you love the show.
For our MP3 listeners, you will not understand the joke, but Jason did a great job of taking pictures of his game board state, and his toenails accidentally slipped into the frame. We didn't call him out while it happened, so we're now inviting our MP3 listeners to come into YouTube and take a look at those cuticles.
Especially if you're into it. So, yeah.
Yes, I'm human like the rest of you. I have feet.
Exactly. It's true. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you had a good time. Give us a like and a subscribe, and we will catch you all at the tables. Have a good night, everybody.